um, promptly, so that's great. Okay, so today, not tonight, but today was the 9th of Tammuz. It still is the 9th of Tammuz because it's still light outside. Last Wednesday, we were talking about Gimel Tammuz, so I guess it was the 2nd of Tammuz, and now it's the 9th, so that makes sense 7 days later. And okay, so I think the Hayom Yom for yesterday and the Hayom Yom for today go very nicely together. Is that 949,
Hmm.
Melissa? Yes, that's Melissa.
Yeah,
Yes.
hi,
Hi,
sorry.
welcome. Okay, so today well, let's just say, let's start with yesterday. It says, we find that Hashem's love for our father Abraham was mainly because, and there's a quote, he will command Tetzaveh, his children and his household. Close quotes. Tetzaveh here connotes bringing into communion with Hashem. In other words, he should command his children from that same word of mitzvah and tetzaveh, to command. He should command his children. In other words, he should instruct them about all of the mitzvot. So he should command them regarding the mitzvot. And um, all of Avram's towering avoda in the test to which he was subjugated cannot be compared to his commanding others and bringing them into communion, or bringing merit to others. So there's a lot of words here. And it seems also interesting that it says why Hashem loved Avram so much. But basically, Hashem was very happy with the fact that Abraham was able to instruct his children and householders in the ways of Hashem. Now, that's what it means. But actually, if we think about it, Hagar didn't follow in the ways of Hashem. And
But she
he
committed
had two
Tshuva.
sons. He had Yitzchak and Yishmael was not following in the ways, so much so that Sarah had to tell Abraham that they need to go. So we do know that after Hagar left and after Sarah died, she came back and her name changes to Keturah because she does tshuva. But in the beginning, it's interesting that we're talking about, really, it's talking about the importance of chinuch and the importance of instructing your children and importance of sharing the ways of Hashem, and a big schus to parents who are able to impart these Torah laws to their children. And it actually even says that um, it says we find that Hashem's love for our father Avram was mainly because, and then the quote, he will command to tzaveh his children and his household. So he was very motivated in chinuch. I was recently reading in Rabbi Nachman something about chinuch, and it actually said that it's a great kindness to teach your children, even using discipline and gevura to teach them, because if you don't teach them,
Hmm.
then, and not only Torah things, but if you don't teach them that there's consequences for their actions, if you don't teach them accountability, if you don't teach them responsibility, if you don't teach them that you're really withholding a chesed from them. So in our day and age, it's
Hmm.
often unpopular to not be, very kind of generous with the boundaries and loving and kind. And Rabbi Nachman was saying that that's actually
The
not a
opposite.
kindness to the children. So
Hmm.
here we're talking about this idea of chinuch and all of Avram's tests. And he had 10 of them. And we know each test was there to bring out greater strengths in him and to bring out his innate abilities. None of them can be compared to him trying to connect to others and bring them into communion with Hashem, which was also so that they should have more schusim. It's an interesting way of talking about the fact of him bringing them into communion with Hashem, not that he should get more brownie points for being a good kiruv worker, but that he should bring schusim to them, that they would be able to do mitzvot and thereby get the rewards for those mitzvot. So that's his towering, that's kind of, that's really his a big accomplishment. Now that was yesterday's Hayom Yom, and it sits very well with today's Hayom Yom, which was that the greatest guaranteed assurance of divine assistance for all Jewish parents in need of special help and deliverance for their children is through their support of those who study Torah. So if you're looking for a way of, wow, how can I bring down a kind of guarding, protective hashpoah on my children? So according to this teaching here, and it doesn't say it as a good idea, but it says the greatest guaranteed assurance of divine assistance for all Jewish parents in need of special help and deliverance for their children is supporting people who learn Torah. So that's a very clear directive. Now, I just want to add in a little bracket from our Monday class when we were talking about how when we do certain things, in a sense that make Hashem happy or align ourselves with Hashem or with his will or with his ways of how of being, so to speak. In other words, Hashem is kind and good and light and generous and all of that. When we align ourselves with that and we follow in his ways, he in turn gives us extra assistance in our life. And we learned it in terms of the Tanya. We were studying the Tanya, and we were talking about the great benefit a person receives when they meditate on godly things and an arousal of godliness, an arousal of enthusiasm and emotion comes, and they serve Hashem with that. That's wonderful. But then it says if a person is meditating on Hashem and they can't arouse their heart with all enthusiastic feelings, but they just want to arouse their heart with enthusiastic feelings, and they're just thinking the right thoughts, Hashem will help them and will take it as if they have all those right and fiery and burning emotions. So he comes in and he assists. And then on Monday, we also said that when the Jewish people are not together and not united, and there's lots of machlokas, then a protection that he usually has, which envelops the people of Israel, when they don't deserve it so much, he takes it away and he kind of says, what will be, will be. You're not getting my special protective services because you're not deserving them now. So it's interesting that in this Hayom Yom, Hashem is saying, when you do certain things, when you invest in supporting Torah, then I'm going to pour down this extra protection around you and your children, which is an interesting thing. I mean, it's talking about here supporting Torah, but we also know that in general, tzedakah does protect us, and we also know that there's sort of guarantees in the Torah that if we give tzedakah, Hashem will kind of reward us and pay us back. And it says you're not supposed to test Hashem, but somehow in the matter of tzedakah,
You're allowed to.
you're even allowed to test. I'm not sure exactly how you do the test, but I'm sure Hashem somehow finds ways to pass the test, which is that when you show your capacity and readiness to invest and to give in things that are Torah-based or make Hashem happy, so to speak, then there's this extra hashpoah, extra protection and extra aura of, I guess, protection that will surround you and your and your family. So that's a very clear directive. If you're looking for a clear directive, there it is. Okay. Welcome to Sorry. I know she just joined.
The way
So,
that you were saying about testing, I'm sorry. I was speaking with somebody, and it's funny. My husband always makes this joke, and because we're going to pay for Scarlett to go next to Chabad this year coming up, right? So, and there's my husband, well, yeah, our budget's going to be strained. We're going to have to be, tighten, whatever. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I was like, no, don't worry, because Hashem is going to pay us back. This is free.
well, good for you, Sandra. They say that the Jewish women were redeemed in merit. They say that the Jewish people, I'm sorry, not the Jewish woman, the
Hmm.
Jewish people were redeemed
Right.
in merit of the righteous woman. So you're
Hmm.
standing very strong
Hmm.
amongst the righteous woman
Thank
right
you.
there.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to come into the parshiyot of this week, and it's a double parsha. It's Chukat
Hmm.
Balak, and they got pretty different themes, but let's start by focusing on Chukat because there's plenty to talk to in Chukat, and I'm sure that there are themes that connect them, but that might be beyond the scope of what we're going to be doing today. Okay, so the idea of Chukat comes from the word chok, and chok is a mitzvah that I could say that there's no rational explanation for. Or I could say differently that it's difficult for us to understand the explanations for the mitzvah. And that it says that King Shlomo HaMelech, who understood all the mitzvot, he couldn't understand um, this particular mitzvah that we're going to speak about right now. And it's interesting because it says that even at the time, and there was a relationship between the Torah personalities, the rabbis, in the times of the Roman times, and they had discussions and they were involved in each other's lives. And the rabbis were, I guess, the times of the times of the first temple. So rabbis were discussing, and I'm not sure if they're the Amoraim or the Tanaim. My Jewish history dating is not so perfect, but the Romans made fun of
Hmm.
the Yidden for what we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to talk about today is this classic chok, which is connected to the para aduma, the cow that's completely red. Okay, so Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying that this is the rule of the Torah. Zot chukat haTorah. This is a chok. Zot chukat haTorah. Asher tzivah Hashem lemor, that Hashem commanded, saying, Deber el bnei Israel, v'yikhu eilecha, take to you a para aduma, a completely red cow, tamim, that is unblemished, asher ein ba mum, that doesn't have any kind of uh, damage, any kind of blemish, ein ba mum, asher lo ala aleha ol, and that this cow has never carried a yoke. So it's a new cow. It's never worked as a cow in service of plowing or anything like that. And this is the kind of plow that you have, the kind of cow that you have to have. It's actually, there's just a little cute thing that I have to read to you. It says, because everything in Torah, when we're reading anything in Torah, there's always multiple levels we can read, right? So on the pshat level, the Kohen will look for a completely red cow that never had the yoke of a plow put on its back, and that's the kind of cow you have to use. But the Torah can be understood on many levels and on the metaphorical level. So if one would compare oneself to a cow, a red cow, an unblemished cow. So those, and this is from Rab Yisrael Hapstein of Koznitz in the 18th century, those who consider themselves without any blemish, devoid of blemish, they have actually never carried the yoke of Shemayim. They've never carried the yoke of heaven. Because if they had accepted this yoke, they would have realized that they have many blemishes. It's just a little, like a little aside. But anyway, okay. So you, the Kohanim have to look for a totally red-haired, unblemished cow upon which no yoke has ever been laid. You must give it to Eleazar, the priest, and he has to take it outside the camp, and someone must slaughter it in his presence. And Eleazar, the priest, must take some of its blood with his finger and dash it towards the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. Someone must then burn the cow in his presence. He must burn its hide, its flesh, its blood, along with its dung. The priest then must take cedar wood, hyssop, and wool dyed scarlet with the extract of the tolaas worm and cast them into the ashes of the burning cow. Okay, so we've had stories like this before. We had a kapara for Lashon Hora when we had 2 birds. We learned about it in this class. One bird, we said birds because they twitter and tweet.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're trying to repair Lashon Hora, and one bird goes free, and one bird you take it and you use its some aspect from it, and then cedar wood and hyssop and all of these things to make some kind of mixture that can take something or someone from a state of impurity to a state of purity. So the Torah didn't tell us yet who's going to need this mixture, but we know that it's going to tell us soon, I guess. Yeah, we know that anybody who's touched a dead person, anybody who comes across a corpse in the field, anyone who gets in touch with tuma. So this ritual of the ashes of the para aduma mixed with cedar wood, hyssop, all of these things mixed together and then mixed with water, that's going to make the person who's impure into pure, and the person who's pure, who does the service, will become impure. So I'll read it a little further along in the text, but the part that made the Romans who were sort of interested enough to know what the Jewish people were doing, they thought that this was very strange, that someone's impure, then he comes to the Mishkan, then a priest who's pure helps him out, then the guy who was impure becomes pure, but the priest who helped him out becomes impure. So they thought, this is really crazy. Like, how did the Jews come up with this kind of thing? So that's where the idea that it's a chok comes in. But let's just finish going through it. So the priest takes cedar wood, hyssop, wool dyed scarlet, extract of tolaas worm, and puts them with the ashes. Now the priest has to immerse his garments, immerse his flesh in water. That's the mikveh. Then he may enter the camp, but he's impure until nightfall. The one who burns it must immerse his garments in water and immerse his body in water, and he will be impure till nightfall. But the person who was impure because he had come in touch with someone who was passed away, a corpse, a body, whatever, a ritually undefiled person has to gather the cow's ashes, place them outside the camp in a ritually undefiled place, and he will remain for the community, and it will remain for the community to be used when it's needed. And
Oh,
then
so they can reuse these
so they
ashes?
can reuse them. And then again, the one who gathers the ashes has to immerse in water, and he will be ritually impure till nightfall. And this is an everlasting rule. Okay, anyone, and now it's telling you, anyone who touches the corpse of a human being will become ritually defiled for 7 days. And and I think that I have a list, and I think I did read to tell you who are those situations, but it's uh somebody who's come in touch, um someone who's come in touch with a corpse. Um and one of the reasons why there was such stringency about this is that they were trying also to discourage. There was this thing amongst the other nations to consult the dead
Hmm.
and
Uh-huh.
uh, kind of get involved with, so this is like if you even touch a dead
Right.
person, you're going to be in this situation.
Can I
Whoever
just,
touches
can I
the,
ask you quickly?
sure.
It's very odd that it says for 7 days. So that means by the eighth day, you're not impure anymore. And then like,
Only after you've done the stuff, only
Hmm.
after you've done the ashes and you've gone to the Kohen and he
so
does
then
it on the
after seven
third
days
day. He,
after 7 days after you do that, so you're not automatically pure.
no,
You have to
so
wait
you have,
seven
it says
days
on the
after you.
third day and the seventh day, he has to do this purification ritual to get rid of this defilement. And he doesn't do it just once. He does it on the third day and then he does it on the seventh day. So he has to
Oh,
do it twice. Whoever touches the corpse and it doesn't purify himself, that person, um, it says he'll be cut off. He remains ritually defined. Okay, and this is the law. If a person
okay.
dies in a tent, anyone entering the tent, anyone present in the tent will be ritually defiled for 7 days. Even a vessel, an earthenware vessel that hasn't got a seal on it will become defiled if it's in the room of or the tent of someone. And here it is. In an open field, anyone who touches a person slain by a sword, a corpse, even a human bone, or a grave will be ritually defined for 7 days. And they have to
Oh,
do this purification ceremony, and the ritually undefiled person takes the hyssop, dips it into water, and then splashes it on the tent, on the vessels, on the people who were in it, and anyone who touched the bone, the person, the corpse, or the grave.
can I interrupt again? I feel very bad.
Well, just
I,
hang on 1 second, and then you can interrupt when we
okay.
just let's finish the thought.
Yeah, it's
So
well, it's about this idea.
okay,
It's just deeper. No, I'll wait until you.
okay. Well, now I've stopped. So tell me what you want to say.
I'm keep thinking. I never knew the details of, a third day and seventh day and how intense it is. So I keep thinking, what is so whatever about a mace, about a dead body? And you said that's something that they did, but I think it has to do with that the neshama's gone. The
Well, why don't
neshama's
you
gone
let
from the
me? Why don't
body.
um? Well, that's a good explanation.
It's
I
there's
mean,
something about like why do you become like impure? Like the person didn't do anything wrong. Their neshama's gone. Oh
it's
no, I just
actually
lost.
it's actually a very good question
I can't believe
because
I just.
um why, and I think you answered your own question. I think that everything in Torah that we understand about Torah is life affirming. And everything that's connected, and we've spoken about this before and we've taught about it before, that everything that's tahor, which is pure, is about
Right,
change, process, flow, movement, not getting stuck.
right,
Everything about Tuma is about stuckness, no
right,
progress, no evolution, no development. So if a body has a neshama in it, it has life in it, and that life gives it a capacity to
Right.
constantly renew itself, grow, evolve, become, it has life. That's the quality of life. The quality of death, and it's very interesting because there's um, a quote, and I think this is just so absolutely brilliant. And I want to share with you this quote because it's very interesting. So let me just find it because it'll give you a good explanation on a different level. So where is it? Can't be far, can't be far, can't be far.
Thank you, Bacha. I'm sorry. It just,
No, it's okay. I'm not finding it written down, but
it's
I remembered
okay.
it. I remembered it. There's a quote from the Ishbitzer, and he says, "What is a spiritual way we can understand having contact with the corpse, having contact with the dead body that would make one impure?" And he says, holding on to things that happened in the past, things that are done and gone and dead in a way. And if you can't let them go and you can't forgive Hashem or you can't forgive yourself or you can't move on, you get the tumor, spiritually speaking or metaphorically speaking, of a person who's touching and contaminated by a corpse. I thought this was the most brilliant insight because we're trying to relate to these things. We don't have a Mishkan, we don't have Kohanim. This is a very ritualistic process. And the
Right.
ritualistic process, and Rabbi Professor Jonathan Sachs speaks about this ritual thing in a very beautiful way because we're not just dealing with the death of something, because what we do in this ritual is we mix the ashes with water. And water is always a symbol of purity. And water is a symbol of Torah. And water is a symbol of life. And what Rabbi Sachs is saying is that this is actually, people talk about it as a chok, as something that has no rational explanation, but he brought a kind of explanation in that we see death as a part, we see it's a way of relating to death, but it's a way of relating to death in such a way that we don't get stuck in it. Why? Because you have to add the water. And you add the water,
Oh,
and the water is a symbol of life.
Hmm.
And you add
oh.
the water, and the water is sprinkled, and the water is mixed, and there's a whole thing. You take the water and you sprinkle it on the person and on the place and on the energy. And it's actually interesting because
And with
um,
that hyssop, that hyssop must have
and
something in it
well,
that,
well, the hyssop, if you learn about herbs, and I'm sure Karen can back me up on this, there's some kind of herbs that are cleansing, and there's some kind of herbs that have the capacity to like help move
uh-huh,
things through. So
uh-huh,
the worst thing is that a person should get attached to, let's say they did come across a corpse in the field, or they were in a room where there was a person who had passed away. I just have to switch on the air conditioning. I'm sorry, 1 second.
Hmm.
I have to tell you, when I'm sorry to say this, when I was doing the Zoom on my phone, everybody was frozen and I couldn't
It
take it
happens once in a
anymore.
while because you
I don't know
can't.
why. So
Okay.
now
Sometimes it
Wait,
does
wait,
it on
wait,
my
wait, wait.
TV
Let me
too.
just carry on
okay,
this.
go
Let me
okay,
just carry
so
on
the
the thought.
herbs, some herbs
Um,
are
so
purifying.
so we're
That's
hang
what
on.
you're up
I'm
to.
in the middle of a thought. Sorry. Let me just finish this thought.
I'm reminding you.
Yeah, I didn't forget.
Okay.
So when a person has had the misfortune, it's traumatic. You're walking along the road and you find a corpse somewhere, or you on a battlefield and you see someone's been slain by by a sword. That means they got caught in warfare. Or you happen to be in a room, in a tent with the corpse. It means maybe you were taking care of that person. Why would you be in a tent with someone who's passed away? Maybe you were caretaking. So then you've got this energy of death on you, and it's an energetic reality. And you've got to, there's a ritual to transform this feeling that you might have, which could for sure be depression, sadness, a feeling of, wow, death, life is so temporary. We just land up, in the earth or whatever. But then this ritual comes and it mixes the ash with the water, and the water is this symbol of life, and it kind of like transforms the reality. It transforms it and gives some kind of perspective with which to relate to the presence of death, and makes it part of the cycle of life as well. That's in a way something of how Rabbi Sachs spoke about this. I just want to see if I said everything that he said, because it's very touching to me, the way
Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. So what happens with the next part, let me just read it to him, because we die, but life goes on. That is the symbolic statement of the red heifer rite. All that lives eventually turns to dust and ash, but life continues to flow like a never-ending stream. And this is the idea of water. Significantly, the Hebrew word for inheritance, a nachla'ah, is related to the word for a stream or a spring, which is a nachal. And somebody, he quotes, I guess a Roman or a Greek, Heraclitus, said that no one bathes in the same river twice. The water that was once here is gone. It has flown into the sea, evaporated into clouds, and fallen again as rain. But the stream continues to flow. There is death, but there's also continuity. So it says that the law of the red heifer is a powerful statement about life and death, grief and consolation, the ephemeral and the eternal. So I thought that was very interesting. And then what Rabbi Sachs does is that he actually relates the first part of the parsha, which is the red heifer, which is in a way a chok, and the part that we don't understand, not that there is a ritual for someone who's encountered death. Maybe we can even understand that. The part we don't really understand is how the one who's helping becomes impure, and the one who was impure becomes pure. So let's say we don't understand that. That's okay. But then what happens right after we've learned about this ritual, what happens is that in the next part of the Parsha, we're going to, Miriam is going to pass away, Aaron is going to pass away, and Moshe is going to be coming close to the time when he's going to pass away. So in a way,
it's connected.
The Pesukim about the ritual of the Para Aduma is almost preparing us to engage and deal with what's coming, which is going to be the death of these three very significant people for the people of Israel. So, okay, so all of the Bnei Israel come to the desert of Sin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. Now, what it doesn't say in the Psukim is that this is now close to 40 years later. Like, we sort of suddenly come to this part and it says Miriam died, but at this point, most of the people in the Bnei Israel who were adults at the time of the spies, the Meraglim, they've all died
Right.
out already. Now they're close to entering into Eretz Israel. Miriam is still alive because the women weren't dying; that they were not, punished in that way. Moshe and
Oh.
Aaron didn't die. Um, um,
The tribe of Levi didn't die.
Yehoshua ben Nun didn't die,
Mhm.
and Caleb didn't die, and the tribe of Levi didn't die, but many of the men died. But so we practically 40 years later, and now we're coming into this piece where Miriam is dying and being buried. And then we have this very interesting thing that as soon as Miriam died, and I've taught this before, and it's a very beautiful piece of
Right.
Torah, that the minute Miriam dies, what
There's no
happens?
water.
The
V'lo
water
Right.
dries up.
hayamayim
Right.
le'eda v'yikachalu al Moshe v'al Aaron. So who wants to translate this or read
The
it?
water,
Grace?
the water dries up more or less. It stops flowing because it was in her merit, and it only came back because of the schus of Moshe.
Okay, but that's not what it says.
Oh,
I
that's not
thought
what.
it
The
was,
Oh,
community had
I
no
thought you were
water, so
asking
they
me.
assembled against Moshe and Aaron.
I didn't think. I just said when you said translate, I just thinking you wanted me to paraphrase it. I'm sorry.
it's okay. Okay, so um
Right. The
so let's
community had no water, so they assembled against Moshe and Aaron, which is, it sounds said it's against. It's not
yes,
just they
Mhm.
came to
yes,
them.
right. And read the next one as well.
The people argue with Moshe and they said, if only we had expired the way our brothers expired before Hashem.
Again, carry on reading.
Why have you brought the assembly of Hashem to this desert so that we and our animals should die here, but
One
die there?
and again.
Why have you taken us out of Mitzrayim to bring us to this evil place? Oh no, it's not a place that can have planted, can be that can be planted with seeds, nor a place of fig trees, grapevines, and pomegranate trees, and there's no water to drink. Moshe and Aaron moved away from the assembly into the entrance of the tent of meeting, and they fell on their faces. The glory of Hashem appeared to them. Yeah,
Okay,
I can
so
understand why they ran away. It's like,
we've had a lot of situations already where the people are complaining and Moshe is responding to their complaints and getting upset with their complaints. Sometimes Hashem is so upset with them. Sometimes
Mhm.
Moshe is so upset with the people. So I had an insight this year learning this, which I don't think I've had before, and I've shared it with you already, but I'll share it with you again. That it's very popular now to talk about people who are traumatized and people who've been through trauma. And if we think about all the people who came out of Mitzrayim, so if we just think about it, we
right,
know that 1/5 came out and 4/5 stayed in Egypt. So for every person who came out, 4/5 didn't make it, and they died, and they died in the darkness so that the Mitzrayim wouldn't know about it, but the Yidden
right.
certainly knew about it.
But
So
they would see them the next day dead anyway. All right, whatever. Sorry.
so so there's that trauma. Then they come out into Mitzrayim, and for the last 200 years or whatever, they've been slaves. They haven't kind of been able to have proper family life. The woman, through tremendous Mesirat Nefesh, were able to keep having children, but it wasn't easy, not normative family life at all. Then they leave knowing that that 4/5 of their people have been decimated. And now they're
Right,
coming into the midbar with no idea what's happening from moment to moment.
right,
And of course, they've got no sense of past. They don't know what the future is. So they're complaining nonstop.
It's a lack of control.
They
They
have no
lost,
control.
and yeah,
And so every time, and obviously when we're reading this, there are many different, again, levels of how we're going to read these Pesukim. We can read these Pesukim as the Bnei Israel back then leaving Egypt, or we can read it as people who are stuck in old ways of thinking, trying to get to new ways of thinking, and how in the process of kind of shedding old skin, how easy is the process to move to a new way of thinking? Well, it's not really easy at all. And one of the things that make it not easy is all the time kind of, oh my God, it was so much better
In
then
Egypt.
when that what I knew. And yes, we were slaves and we were beaten and we had no, freedom and everything. But look, there was some grapevines and pomegranate trees, and maybe there were fig trees. Maybe they didn't even have all those things. So it's that kind of complaining. And we've seen that sometimes Moshe gets really upset, and at other times Hashem gets really upset. But it's a very tricky situation where the people are, it's a
it's
struggle.
understandable.
This,
It's
Well,
understandable.
it's an
the thing is,
understandable
though,
struggle.
but this generation wasn't slaves. I'm not, like, why would they complain about going back to Egypt? They weren't in Egypt ever.
Well,
Oh, right. You're right.
this is that's actually interesting because now we're 40 years later. So maybe
Right.
now that's a great point. The fantasy of what it used to be, even, more dangerous than the reality. But what's interesting, and we spoke about this last year, is what happens with Moshe. Okay. And so we have 15 minutes. So let's just talk about it outside of the text, and then we'll talk about it within the context of the text. Whatever happens in this next little part, and we know the famous story, right? That Hashem told Moshe to speak to the rock and to get water. So just you tell me again, what is water symbol of again? I've forgotten.
Life and flowing.
Life and flow, and what else?
Cleansing.
What?
Oh,
Cleansing.
Cleansing. Good. What else?
Purity, because it's pure.
Oh, yes, that too. What else?
Renewal.
Yes, that too. What else?
It's not the right word. You're looking for some.
Right. She's not
I don't
I
think
know,
you said this, but Mayim is a Siman Bracha, right?
Mine is a Simon Bracha, yes.
I don't
But
think you
what
said
else?
that tonight.
Yes, but
Right.
what else?
We already said life. We already said
sanctification. No, that's
purity.
Purification. You said, yeah.
Yes,
Right. You
all of
said that,
that.
right. It's not sanctification because that's
But
what
it brings life also. If you water your plants, then you
Yes.
bring life to
Yes.
other
giver.
things
Yeah.
too.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
All right, bracha. I mean, like,
Come on. Someone's got to get it.
Linda,
a thirst quencher.
Well, tell me more about that.
Linda,
Like
we're not getting the right answer.
Quenching
Wait,
your
What
Sandra's
is
going to
knowledge?
get it. What did you say? Thirst
Quenching
quencher?
your thirst for knowledge.
Tell me more.
I never heard.
Well, if you're learning Torah and you get knowledge, you're not going to, and you
Because
want to learn more,
Mayim
you're
is
not
a
going to go
symbol.
and come up with these like fantastical or fantasy worlds or something that
Okay,
kind of
so
makes sense to when you say, well, let's go back to Egypt or something.
Torah is compared to water.
thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
Tova.
very good.
Oh my gosh, I thought I was going to cry.
I know.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. It's late.
Water is a symbol of Torah. That's why all the digging of the wells, it's not just looking for water, it's looking for inspiration. It's
Right.
looking for Torah. It's looking for words of wisdom. So why would it be that when Miriam dies, suddenly the people are fighting? Why, if Miriam died, and I've just told you that water is connected to Torah,
Oh.
why when Miriam died, did they start fighting with each other?
But
Why?
somehow they lost their Torah, that
Thank you.
Miriam was symbolic of.
She
Thank
kept
you.
the family purity laws, right? She taught them, and then she, right, also
Even though
got
there
her
was no
parents back
mikvah,
together.
Okay, so let's be
they made
let
mikvahs in the midbar. How'd they do that? All right, whatever.
that's interesting because all the Kohanim, we just said they had to go to a mikveh and put their clothes in a mikveh. So I was also wondering how they have a mikveh in the midbar, but we know they had the Bear Miriam, right? And the Bear Miriam was water, so they used some of that for their mikveh. But the reason why, so now you're going to tell me this: if water is a symbol of Torah, and if the minute that Miriam died, the people started arguing and rebelling against Moshe and Aaron, why?
Because
What
they
kind of
lost their connection to Torah, and
Wait,
it
wait, let me
why?
get
gave
there.
them,
Why?
because
Why?
Answer the question.
Miriam was gone and the water was gone.
Okay, so I mean, but
I mean, I
Moshe and
know it. I just
Aaron
can't
was still
express it.
there. Moshe and Aaron was still there.
No, I know,
Right.
but they weren't symbolic of water and purity. And because she was a woman and she was the one who actually put Moshe in the water to begin with. Not that really makes a difference, but
So
she's symbolic of something that Moshe and Aaron aren't symbolic of.
it's interesting because Miriam had a quality that added to their Torah, a woman quality, an ability, and
Right.
how this actually happened in real life. It's not quite so easy to see and understand, but let's say the rules and the laws, right? The Rebbe always said, and I said it at the beginning of class, Sandra is telling her husband, don't worry, pay the tuition to the Jewish school for our granddaughter. Hashem is going to reward us. You don't have to worry. And her husband says, no, but this and that. And Sandra says, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So the Rebbe always said that in the merit of the righteous woman, we are going to be redeemed.
Right.
So what is it that woman and a womanly insight and a womanly affect brings to the Torah learning that Moshe and Aaron, just without the influence of Miriam, that something was missing. And as soon as she passes away, there's like
Because she has extra bina. That's
there's
the
extra bina, and that power of the woman to kind of soften everything and make everything
right.
digested. Maybe Miriam would be giving the shiurim to the woman, and then the woman
Right.
would go and talk to their husbands. And
Right.
somehow, without this quality of Miriam, the Miriam quality, the water dries up. The water dries up. Yes, they find a way and they bring it back, but the water dries up, the inspiration dries up, the flow of hashpoah, of divine wisdom flowing through the people, that also dies. It's not just that she dies and then the water, it's connected with this connection to the wisdom, to the Masorah, to the teaching, to the understanding. And that's going to impact how we look at the next part of the story. It's so nice to see you, Linda. I didn't say hello. So hi. So what happens in the next part of the story is that Hashem says to Moshe, okay, they don't have water. I want you to go and speak to the rock, and the rock will give you water. So let's see what happens, okay? So they all arguing with Moshe and Aaron. They're very grumbly. They don't have their shear from Miriam. The women aren't able to calm the men down. The men are getting agitated. They don't have this feminine presence. So they're all kind of getting upset. Take the staff and assemble the community, you and your brother Aaron, and speak in their presence to the rock, so that the rock will give forth its water. You'll bring forth water for them from the rock and give the community and the animals to drink. So Moshe took the staff from before Hashem, as Hashem had commanded, and he gathered, and all the people were in front of the rock. But he didn't remember which was the right rock.
Oh my
Didn't
gosh.
know which was the right rock, and he's not sure. So he says, and then he's not so happy with the people, so he sort of speaks to them a little bit not so nicely. Now listen, you rebels, can we draw water for you from this rock? And then he raised his hand, and what did he do? He struck the rock with his staff twice, and an abundance of water did come forth, and everybody drank. But there was a problem, right, Linda?
He
What was
wasn't
the
supposed to
problem?
do.
What was the problem?
He wasn't supposed to do
Your
that.
name's not Linda.
Oh, I'm
Is the
sorry.
problem with
I-
him striking the rock and the
Right,
water coming out?
right. He struck the rock twice. And
Yeah.
let's see what it says. Can you read for me Pasuk 8, verse 8?
Take the staff and assemble the community, you and your brother Aaron, and speak in their presence to the rock, so that it give forth its water. You will bring forth water for them from the rock, and give the community and their animals to drink.
So you're supposed to speak to the rock.
Right.
And I think
Oh.
he maybe speak, but he was at the wrong rock. But then when he went to hit the rock, he was at the right rock. And then
Oh.
he loses his temper a little bit. He calls the people rebels, and he gets a little upset, and he raises his hand and he strikes the rock. Yes, water comes out, but it was supposed to be through speaking, and it comes out through hitting. And so
Violent.
what happens? So Linda, can you read 12, please?
Sure. God said to Moses and Aaron, since you did not have enough faith in me to sanctify me in the eyes of the Israelites, you therefore will not bring this assembly to the land that I have given them.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I got in
That's
trouble.
very intense, right? That Hashem told them to speak to the rock, and instead of speaking to the rock, they hit the rock. So you could say, big deal.
They or
People-
Moses?
They didn't have
The
patience.
people-
They should have waited. I think that's what it was. They were just
Well,
like,
Moses
can't
had a
wait,
bad
just-
temper. He killed the Egyptian. Remember that?
Well,
He
I
had
would
some
also, if he
anger
was hitting
issues.
somebody else.
and
that's not
also
acceptable.
He
what
didn't have enough
exactly is
vina.
what is it exactly you're supposed to say to the rock?
he was
Hello, rock.
supposed to
How are you?
say,
Can you please give us some water?
Because that's faith, because God told him
Right.
to speak to the rock.
Just
right.
Hashem
So
didn't tell them exactly what to say to the rock. Maybe they
But they're
didn't know
on
the
such a
exact
high
words.
level that
He gave
they
him
would
enough
have known, they should have
intelligence.
known, they're on
Right.
such a
Figured
high
it out.
level that,
But they didn't
they're
know.
on such a high level, they would have known this.
Well,
Yeah.
so let's talk about this for a little bit. So as a result of Moshe hitting the rock and not speaking to the rock, he was given this punishment that he
Did
wouldn't be able
you
to,
pick up yet?
he wouldn't be able to bring the people into the land of Israel. But it is interesting to know that before, when they had just crossed the Red Sea and they didn't have water, Hashem told him to hit the rock and get water. So
that's
it's
great.
not like he never was told before to hit the rock, but in this moment, he was told to
Oh.
speak to the rock. So now, one of the explanations is that Yehoshua then led the people of Israel into the land of Israel. Now, what's the difference? And I already heard Linda answering this question, so I'm going to give Linda an opportunity to answer this question again. What's the difference between speaking to the rock and hitting the rock?
Well, one is diplomatic and one is violence. One is faith, because God said talk to it, and the other is, I'm frustrated.
Right.
Okay,
Which
so
leads us to a lot of
so
problems.
before we talk about Moshe having anger problems, let's just realize also that his sister had just died,
Right.
and his sister was his main supporter. If it wasn't for his sister, he wouldn't even have been born, right? Because
Right.
his sister
Right.
talked his parents into getting married,
Oh, yeah.
remarried, because they were
Right.
separated because his father said, Pharaoh's going to kill all the boys in the Nile. And then Miriam said, well, Pharaoh's only going to kill the boys, but if you divorce mommy, you're going to not have boys or girls, so you'll be worse than Pharaoh. So then he said, wow, you're a 6-year-old girl, but you know a thing or two. And then he remarried his wife. And then Moshe was born. Then Miriam was the one who watched out for him
Right.
when he was put into the Nile. And
Right.
when Batya found him, Miriam was the one who made sure he could be nursed by his own mother. And so Miriam has always been, by his side, and she taught the woman, she gave the woman the shiurim when he was, maybe his Torah was less comprehensible, and she translated it in a sort of user-friendly way. So he just lost his sister. But the way the Chachamim interpret this also is that Moshe was the leader of the generation when they needed a strong hand. They
Right.
came out of Egypt. They were a bunch of slaves. They needed to be kind of held and handled in a certain way, moving through the desert. But now they're coming into Eretz Israel. And the coming into Eretz Israel, the reason why Hashem wanted him to speak to the rock, it's sort of parallel to, if I'm going to present to you a bunch of laws and ordinances, I can either tell you you must do these things, or I could gently suggest or ask, or let's work on this together kind of thing. The idea was that Moshe was a son, kind of a leader like a son. He shone very, not like a father's son, but a son compared to a moon. That he had a very bright light. He was, a very strong leader. And by hitting the rock, when he was supposed to speak to the rock, he's showing that he's the kind of a leader that the people don't need that kind of leader anymore. The kind of leader they need is Yehoshua, who's a moon kind of leader. In other words, not you will do this, you must do this, this is the rules, but more like, all right, let's work this together, let's bring it, from the inside out kind of thing. And what Hashem wanted Moshe to do at that point is he wanted the people to get that lesson in faith that you already mentioned, Linda. I think you heard this class before, so you knew all the right answers.
No.
I'm kidding. He wanted the people to have that lesson in faith, that if a rock can give forth its water just from being spoken to, what about you people? Can you be at least as responsive and reactive as a rock? The rock was spoken to and it gave forth the water. But Moshe, by hitting the rock, he was kind of an old paradigm of force and imposing. And it was supposed to be a new kind of energy. And the new kind of energy was Yehoshua, which is more not a top-down authority kind of, but more a bottom-up kind of authority, more of a moon leader rather than a sun leader. So that's some of the explanations of that. It wasn't just a punishment, but it was like, you're not really the right leader for this people going into the next phase. You were a great leader for getting them out of Egypt and coming to this point, but once they're going to go into the land, that kind of more old-fashioned, old world leadership style is not so suitable. We need there's going to be a new kind of leader that's going to
Diplomacy, government.
that's going to take it from here on. And then, so in the rest of the Pasha, Aaron dies and Moshe gets ready for his death. So coming back to the beginning of the Pasha with talking about the Paraduma, so when we talk about the Paraduma, we see that the death, the cow, the ashes of the cow getting mixed with the water, that there is, continuation, that yes, these great leaders pass away, but there'll be new leaders. Yeshua will continue, the people will continue, the water came back, there's continuity, there's going to be new leaders. And don't be like the Ishbitzer says, don't leave yourself holding onto a corpse. When something is done and over, you need to know when to let it go. Because if you don't let it go, then you like the person who is becoming tumor from attaching to a corpse.
Like you have to move forward. It's
Allow
interesting
yourself
that
to move forward.
It's interesting that also the clothes had to be tahar. Like the clothes don't have life in them.
Well, you know, if a person, if Karen is still on the
yeah,
uh thing, and I see she is, you know, when when and somebody told me this, and it's very interesting. When you go in a shower, whatever your mood, the water of the shower just, transforms your mood because it's a cleansing thing, even if it's not a mikveh. And if you are sensitive to energy, as one of my friends is sensitive to energy, if somebody had a certain energy and sat on a couch, she can pick up that energy on a couch. Of course, your clothing is going to pick up energy from you and your feelings and your emotions. And if your clothes were in that area that had this tumor, so, the laws of Torah are so amazing because they acknowledge the laws of energy. There's a law of energy. There's energy. If there's an energetic sense of death, so it's sitting on the clothes, it's sitting in the space, and the way of cleansing the clothes, the person, we had this with saras, that the walls start to get saras, then the saddle, then the clothes, then, and then the person. So energy goes, it's like spores, mushroom spores. They go on the walls, they can go on your skin. So spiritual reality is also like that. It spreads and it attaches, and then it needs to be cleansed. So anyway, that's Parshas Chukas. We didn't get to Balak. It's a double Parsha, but 1 hour is not enough to do so many things. So,
and this Parsha is, I feel bad to say it, this Parsha is much more uplifting, especially the way you described it and you connected everything. Like it's all of a sudden like so meaningful about life and
well, thank you.
all these things. And Balak is sort of like curse the Jews, blah blah blah. It's not as good.
Balak is a lot of wonderful things too, but
I guess I don't remember. Sorry.
Right. No, Balak is a lot of wonderful things as well. Anyway, wishing everyone a good night.
Thank you very
And
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
yeah,
Bracha.
Thank you,
Thank
son.
you.
You're
yes, you're
amazing.
Thank
welcome.
you.
Okay, all the
Have a good
best.
Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.
Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos, good
Good
Shabbos.
Sabbath. Good night.